So today, we're going to break down a total masterclass in communication. Seriously, it's this brilliant, ancient strategy for how to deliver a message that is so difficult, your audience has every single reason to just shut you down. This isn't just some old speech, it's a work of art, really, a masterpiece of psychology and rhetoric.
I mean, it's the ultimate communication challenge, right? Doesn't matter if you're in a boardroom or just at the dinner table with family. Trying to get people to accept a harsh truth about themselves, it can feel impossible. You see it happen. Their defenses go up, their ears totally close, and the conversation is just dead on arrival.
But what if there was a way to sneak past those defenses? What if you could get your audience to agree with your logic step by step, piece by piece, until they've actually passed judgment on themselves without even realizing it? Well, that is exactly what the prophet Amos did. He didn't just give a speech, he set a trap.
Okay, so picture this. The prophet Amos, he steps up in front of all the people of Israel, and he launches into what sounds like this fiery State of the Union address, just calling out all the surrounding nations, one by one. And the crowd, the Israelites, oh, they are loving it. They're hanging on his every word, probably cheering as he condemns all of their enemies.
But you gotta notice how Amos is building his case here. He's not just randomly shouting, he's so clever. He's establishing a pattern. He's creating this rhythm of righteous judgment, getting every single person listening to nod along with him. They're all thinking, yeah, that's right. Those nations are terrible. They totally deserve what's coming to them. He's pulling them right in.
And he uses this really powerful, almost poetic formula for each nation. For 3 sins, even for 4. It creates this building sense of unstoppable, divine justice. It's like this drumbeat of condemnation, and with every single beat, the crowd's agreement just gets stronger and louder.
And listen, the crimes he lists are just horrific. I mean, we are talking about things that are universally evil. Brutal acts of war, selling entire populations into slavery, betrayal, and violence that is just unspeakable. There's no gray area here. These actions are fundamentally, deeply wrong, and every single person listening knows it.
Now, the logic here is so important. Amos isn't accusing these nations of breaking Israel's specific laws. No. He's saying they violated a universal moral standard that applies to everyone. It's this idea that every human is made in the divine image, and when you harm another person, you're disrespecting their creator. So this isn't about local politics. It's about basic human decency.
So Amos has his audience right where he wants them. They are completely convinced of God's justice. They are all fired up about how wicked their neighbors are. He has their complete 100% agreement. And then, right when everyone is nodding along, he pulls the lever. And the trap just snaps shut. That same formula, the same drumbeat of judgment he just used for their worst enemies, he now turns it directly on them. Can you imagine the shock in that crowd? The silence? He used their own righteous anger as the bait. He's got them. They're caught. So now this question is just hanging in the air. What could Israel have possibly done that was as bad as the atrocities of the other nations? Their sins clearly weren't about war or treaties. The audience is just left there wondering, what on earth did we do? You see, the sins Amos lists for Israel are a completely different category. They're not about foreign wars or international incidents. They're all about the internal rot of their own society. It's a story about a breakdown of justice and compassion right there at home. And this didn't just happen overnight. It all started when Israel demanded a king so they could be like the other nations. Well, that created this huge royal bureaucracy, right? A powerful elite class that needed money and land to support itself. So they started seizing land, creating heavy taxes, and twisting the legal system to protect their own power. All of it on the backs of the poor and the vulnerable. And the specific charges? They're absolutely devastating. First, economic injustice so bad they would sell a person into debt slavery for the price of a pair of sandals. Just think about that. Second, corruption in the courts to crush the poor. Third, total religious hypocrisy, going to worship God using things they'd stolen from the needy. And finally, actively rejecting God's guidance by telling their own prophets to just shut up.
So right about now, you might be thinking, okay, that's definitely bad, but is it really worse than what those other nations were doing? And that is the exact question Amos wants his audience to ask. Why is God judging these internal, social sins even more harshly than war crimes?
And the answer comes down to this one crucial Hebrew word, yada. It's often translated as to know, but it doesn't just mean you know facts about someone. It means a deep, personal, special relationship, a covenant. God had known Israel in a way he hadn't known any other nation on earth. This creates 2 totally different standards for judgment.
The other nations, they were judged for violating that universal moral law we talked about, basically for failing at basic human decency. But Israel? Israel was being judged against a much higher standard. The special covenant law, the actual will of God that had been clearly revealed directly to them.
And Amos just states the logic right out loud. It is because of this special relationship, because they were chosen, that their accountability is so much greater. That little word, therefore, is the key. It connects the privilege directly to the punishment. Greater knowledge, greater privilege meant far greater responsibility. It all boils down to a timeless principle that we still wrestle with today. To whom much is given, much is required. Israel had been given more light, more guidance, more direct revelation. They knew better. And in God's eyes, that's what made their failure, their hypocrisy, so much worse.
And because they failed to live up to that higher standard, the judgment isn't going to be some slap on the wrist. No, it's a prophecy of a complete and total societal collapse. And the irony is, it specifically targets the very military power they had built up by oppressing their own people.
Amos, who just loves using numbers to make a point, frames this final verdict around the number 7. Now, in that culture, 7 didn't just mean the number after 6. It symbolized perfection, or wholeness, or completeness. And in this case, it meant complete and total destruction.
He lays out these 7 devastating portraits of military failure. The fastest runner won't be fast enough. The strongest warrior will find himself powerless. The archer, the horseman, even the bravest, most courageous soldier, none of them will be spared. It's this poetic and just crushing picture of an army completely falling apart, a total, inescapable defeat.
And so Amos's trap leaves us with this final thought, a question for us. It forces us to look beyond just the action itself and to think about the responsibility of the person doing it. It's a really challenging question for any person, any organization, or any society that has great advantages. At what point does knowing better turn a simple failure into a profound betrayal?